Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Inside the OC. My name is Matt Cannizzaro, joined by my co-worker at the USBC Open Championships, Daniel Farish. Daniel, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thanks for having me on again.
All right, we're glad to be back, everybody, and we have a very special guest for today's show. He is a legend in the bowling industry and at the USBC Open Championships from Suwanee, Georgia. It is USBC Hall of Famer Bob Hart joining us. Bob, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine this morning, Matt. Thank you very much for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, certainly an honor to have you on the show. Looking forward to some of your great stories going back to the 1950s at least, if not beyond that. You've been at this for a minute, and coming into the 2020 event, you are going to celebrate 65 years of participation with us. That is quite a number, quite an accomplishment, and a very short list of folks who have reached that number. What does that mean? What does that sound like to hear? 65 years at the Open Championships.
Well, it sounds to me like those 65 years went pretty quickly. Wow. Just look back all of those different cities that I traveled to and was able to make them. I think that's the thing that amazes me the most. You know, a lot of blizzards and a lot of different situations come up, and yet I was fortunate enough to make it 65 years. Other than 2 years I missed when I was in the Marine Corps. I was unavailable for 57 and 58. Other than that, it's been consecutive since 1959. So pretty amazing. And as long as I get there this year and overcome this virus problem that we have, that'll be another great moment. So.
Well, we appreciate your service and your dedication, not only to the event, but to the sport. And once you march to the lanes for the 65th time, you'd be the 15th player in history to achieve that. And that list includes probably some of your close personal friends and guys you've shared some time and some time in the lanes with over the years as well.
Yep, that's for sure. I know just about every one of them that's up there. I know of the ones that I didn't know personally, but most of them I knew personally, from Joe Norris right on down through the group. Great Dick Weber and Glenn Allison, Jimmy Schroeder, and incidentally, Sil Thiel, who is the all-time tie at 71 years, I believe it is. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do have a three-way tie at 71 years, just right around the corner for you.
Oh, sounds like a long way off right now. But Sil, I bowled with Sil in Detroit. He was in our leagues in Detroit. He was a very successful operator, a manager of a large center there, and really a great little guy. I knew him very well.
All right, now before we get in the time machine and go back to 1954, let's talk about 2020. Right now, what's going on with you in Georgia? Of course, you're a longtime employee of Storm Products, so a great ambassador again in that role as well. But talk about that. What do you do in your day-to-day role, and what the last couple of weeks have been like for you at home, getting some quality time with the wife?
Well, actually, to answer the first question, I'm still, of course, employed with Storm. I've been with them 25 years as of the 4th of May, and been very happy 25 years for me, and very enjoyable to be that close to the industry with a company as successful and family oriented as Storm Product. As far as being here in Georgia with my wife, we're both quarantined, self-quarantined. Of course, my age, I'm pretty much at risk if something would happen to me, if I catch this virus. But of course, I have a few issues over the years, and consequently, we're just staying close to home.
All right, we'll definitely stay safe and enjoy the quality time. And now let's take that trip back to the 1950s, and I imagine that in 1954, the travel to the Seattle area may have been a little bit interesting, if not part of the entertainment of that entire trip. But that was your first year at the Open Championships, also the introduction of Center Aisle, so a special year in the event's history. Tell us about that first trip. You were only in high school at the time, So as far as getting there and making that cross country trip, um, what were things like in 1954, and what was your first impression of the venue and the event?
Well, I was in high school at that time, and there was a tournament that ran in Columbus, Ohio, which is my hometown at that time. And it was a Central Ohio match game tournament, which encompassed many of the top players from Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and of course Ohio. And one of the awards with that tournament was the winner got a trip to the Masters. I didn't win it, but I was runner-up in that tournament. The great bowler out of Cleveland, Ohio, Joe Bolick, Hall of Fame bowler from Cleveland, Ohio. The match for the finals was four out of seven. I lost in 7 games to Joe, and of course he won the opportunity to go to the Masters in Seattle. Unfortunately, Joe had some illness, and as a runner-up for that tournament, I was awarded the first award, which was a trip to the Masters in Seattle. So that gave me an opportunity not only to have my first ABC, but it was also my first Masters tournament. That's what took me to Seattle to begin with.
All right, now for a wide-eyed youngster, certainly seeing the custom-built venue and all the great players, especially at the Masters, I imagine, of course, you could hold your own pretty well, having earned that spot. But walking through those doors for the first time and seeing that venue, what was that like for you?
You know what? That was amazing. I went with a very good team out of Columbus, Ohio, a couple of my mentors, and to bowl at that level, which of course was coming down that center aisle, it was really, really quite an experience, and one that I still haven't forgotten. I can look back and recognize how excited and how uptight I was to bowl in that first tournament.
Now, did they prepare you at all? Did they give you any insight, any hints about what it was going to be like, and just how to attack that environment? Certainly, it was much different than anything you'd experienced at home.
Well, I went with some very good bowlers that had a lot of experience, but it was a new thing for them. And like you say, it was the first time they took the center aisle to the lanes, and they were a little excited too for the first time to do that. So all in all, it was a good trip for the entire team.
Were there any, being so young, were there any nerves attached? Were you nervous, or were you so young that you didn't really, notice it?
Oh, I had nerves when I was young. Absolutely. Certainly I was nervous. That was my first introduction to that stage, and it was quite impressive. Yes, I was definitely excited, and my nerves were playing a factor.
All right, now you had again the run nearly consecutive, minus a couple of years there for serving the country. What was it about the event and the teammates and the environment that made you want to come back essentially every year since that debut?
You know what? I never really put much thought to it until you mentioned it right now. But once you've bowled in the National Open tournament, the excitement of that tournament, and you realize how important it is. It is for a national title. You're bowling against not only all the certified bowlers in the world, but the very top bowlers too. All of the professional bowlers at that time, which there was not a PBA yet, but they were, the big beer teams, Budweisers, and year after year, you look forward to going back and not only seeing the people that you've met that are employees of the ABC at that time and the USBC, of course, now, you form relationships that you look forward to each year going back and renewing. And I think that's, and it's still exciting. Everything is handled correctly. You have to go through all the procedures, the rules, and the stipulations are set. It's organized, and it just gives you that feeling of a great event and something that you look forward to only once a year. And I think every year it just seemed to call me back again.
Well, we appreciate the kind words, and of course, again, your dedication to coming back each year. And then just 20 short years later, you had a breakthrough on the championship lanes, a phenomenal year. Daniel, again, is our numbers guy. So he's, I'm sure, going to have some thoughts and questions about your performance in 1974 in Indianapolis. But before he does that, tell us about that year and the time that led up to that, and then finally breaking through.
Well, you know, I bowled out. I moved to Detroit in 1968. I bowled in Columbus, Ohio prior to that, in the 50s, early 50s. And of course, I bowled some when I was in the service. And the 60s, I was bowling out of Columbus, Ohio with top bowlers in that venue. And in 1968, I ended up getting transferred to Detroit. And of course, once I got to Detroit, I was, you know, bumping shoulders with the great bowlers, Bob Strampy, Ed Levansky, Billy Golombieski, Tony Lindeman, and all some of the top bowlers of all time. And my game progressed a lot in those years I spent in Detroit. 1974, we had a really good team. And in the team event, we shot a decent score. I think we had 3,050 in the team event. I found the lanes to fit our bowlers. We had 4 other bowlers that could play the line that we decided was the line to play. Tom McKay was secretary of Detroit Bowling Association. Roger Helly, who was a former teammate of the Strohs. Jack Treelor, and Chuck Sinceri, who was my doubles partner. And we had a little team meeting after the team event. We went back, had a little bite to eat. Of course, it was breakfast because in those years we finished about 2:30 in the morning. And we did have a little meeting, and we decided that the line to play, we were going to all stick to that line. And the next day we came out and we lit them up, doubles and singles. My doubles partner and I won the doubles. I held on and won the individual all events. Pardon me. Hope it's not the virus. And needless to say, at that time, that was a great score. That was the second highest team all event score that had ever been bowled. Pardon me, guys. And we walked away from there knowing we had a chance. Of course, we didn't come back until later to bowl in the Masters. And when we did come back, we happened to be there when there were a couple people making a run at us. I was also in first place in the individual all events, and a couple real good bowlers were making a run at that also. And fortunately, both scores held up. In fact, all 3 scores, and counting our double score. And we walked away from there with a tournament that's, you don't have too many tournaments like that. The one we'll always remember. Of course, 2 of my players on that team have passed away. And unfortunately, but that was really a fine team. It was a global beer team out of Detroit. It was one of the beer teams out of Detroit at that time.
But before I have any questions or comments about your numbers, I want to ask, you talked about when you all left, you thought that the number you put up was good enough to hold on, not just for team all events, but for individual all events. Did you track those numbers anyway throughout the duration of the tournament, or did you just post the numbers, go back home, and then just hope? Or did you all try and track them, whether making phone calls or word of mouth or newspapers or what have you?
You know what? That's funny. We didn't really track them, but people would call us and let us know if they were there and somebody had made a run. I'd get phone calls. I'd say, "Hey, I just somebody almost broke your team all events, and there's somebody who had made a run at your individual all events." And when we went back, like I say, we went back for the Masters, and that was at the end of the Open tournament. Mm-hmm. And we sat there in the stands and watched a couple of guys make a run at it. Bud Stout out of Pennsylvania was one of them. He had a shot at my all event scored. He was one of the last bowlers. He was on the last squad of the tournament, and he had a run at it. And of course, he's still a good bowler. He's been bowling. He's been bowling. I don't know how many opens he's been to, but I know it's been quite a few. And we stood in the or sat in the, we were actually standing in the stands because we were watching the scores pretty close. And he was one that I particularly remember because I knew Bud and I still know him. And that was, he went right down to the 7th or 8th frame and still had a chance to knock off my individual all of that. I was kind of standing there watching it. You're mixed feelings, you know.
You don't want to necessarily root against the guy, but you also want to win.
Exactly.
Well, one thing you said, I hope some of the younger generations who are watching this heard what you said when you mentioned that after team event in '74, you guys went out for breakfast at that time and talked about playing the lanes the same the next day, because a lot of younger generations and guys that I talk to think that they're the first ones to come up with this very unique idea of breaking the lanes down the same way. And you guys were doing that 46 years ago. I also don't find it a coincidence that after moving to Detroit in '68, it wasn't that much longer that you found this success on the lanes. We know Detroit was the mecca of bowling for such a very long time. How much do you think living in Detroit and being around all those great bowlers helped you to those titles in '74?
I think it was very, very important. In fact, in 1967, I was bowling in Erie, Pennsylvania. To preface that trip to Detroit, I was bowling out of Erie, Pennsylvania. I worked for General Motors at that time. And I was being transferred to Detroit in the summer of 1967. And at the Masters that year, I bowled the 4th 300 that had ever been bowled in the Master tournament. And I bowled it against a gentleman who ended up later years being a teammate of mine on the Stroh's beer team. And the captain of the global beer team had watched that when I shot the 300, and the word had gotten out that I was moving to Detroit. When I went back to the paddock to change into my, uniform, change out of the uniform, a fellow by the name of Lou Haydu, who was captain of the global beer team in Detroit, which was a number 2 team to the Stroh's team. They were the 2 top beer teams in Detroit at that time. Signed me to bowl with the global beer team. That was prior to my moving to Detroit. Once I did, you mentioned the magic word. I really didn't realize, I guess I realized I was a better bowler than I knew until I got to Detroit. When I started bowling with the caliber bowlers that I bowled with in Detroit, not that I didn't bowl with really good bowlers prior to that, but it was a different level. They also went to a lot of tournaments. They made it a point to hit the tournament. It gave me that opportunity, that venue to bowl in a lot of tournaments that I hadn't bowled in previous. And, just being around those bowlers, absolutely. I ended up practicing with individually with guys like Eddie Lebansky, Bob Qualley, and the good bowlers that bowled nationally good bowlers. They were known nationally. And that was a big, big part. The years I spent in Detroit actually put the finishing touches on my bowling career. I mean, they put me in a position where I could compete with the best in the world. So I still have many good friends in Detroit. The years I spent there were wonderful. And of course, they were among the best bowlers in the country. You had the best bowlers in Detroit, St. Louis, Chicago, Los Angeles. Those 4 cities had the bulk of the great bowlers. And having competed against and with that caliber bowl, you have to get better.
Now, Bob, most people dream of the opportunity to even have a chance at an Eagle. You were able to win not 1 but 3, having already understood the prestige of the event and having already been in Detroit and with those guys for enough time to know what your accomplishments meant. But the whole Open Championships Eagle winning experience is what it is. From the time that you take the lead, you talked about watching the scores, and then finally realizing that it had come true. You had won. Just describe the moments of knowing that you were a champion, and then receiving the awards, and then returning to the event the next year back in Ohio. So familiar territory for you as a champion for the very first time. Eagles next to your name on the scoreboard for the rest of your life. Certainly a very special moment and experience for you.
Absolutely. That Eagle means a lot. I know that not too long ago, they had a little survey going around how what the bowlers thought of the Eagle versus maybe putting champion up on the scoreboards. And I see that the decision was made to leave the Eagle, and I think it was the right decision, because Eagle is the emblem of a an Open Championship. And going back into Dayton in 1975, to see that Eagle up there for the first time was quite a thrill. And we actually had a pretty good year that year too. We finished second in the Classic Team Division lost by 5 pins to the team of the great Nelson Burton and Barry Asher, Bud Horn. I believe Roy Buckley was on that team. And it came right down to our last man, who caught a split, had a split in the 10th frame, and we were beaten by 5 pins for the Classic Division team. So that would have been kind of nice to get an Eagle 2 years in a row, but it didn't happen, and then that's okay. Great team won it.
Well, that 1974 event, the rewards were beyond just the Eagles and the prize money. It also earned you the opportunity to represent the United States on the lanes at the Lee Evans Tournament of the Americas in Florida, and that event still goes on today. So very prestigious event there as well. Talk about that opportunity and the amazing performance you had there. And then I know Daniel will interject with his TOA story as well, because you guys both should be very proud of that opportunity.
You know what? That was a great honor to bowl in that tournament. It was held down in Miami, Florida. And my teammates that year was Joanne Rogowski, was from Buffalo, New York. Mary Lou Graham was from Miami, and Ron Wool, the left-hander out of Louisville, was our four-person team in that tournament. We did very well. We won all of the team events. And I did win 5 of the 6 titles down there that year. And also, that gave me the opportunity to qualify for the FIQ. Unfortunately, I was not allowed to participate. The ABC at that time decided that for several reasons, one being that I had signed in the end of 1974, I went from the global team to the Strosbeer team. And I was told that they were afraid of an international problem, because I was deemed, even though I was not a PBA member, I was deemed to be a professional, and I was disallowed to qualify for the FIQ. At that time, it was a pretty much of a disappointment for me. I couldn't quite understand it, to be honest, but I have a good relationship with the ABC. I also had I had the Stroh's Beer Company's name on my back, and at that point, I went along with the decision, and unfortunately, I was taken out of the opportunity to represent my country further in the FIQ tournaments. I might mention one other highlight of that tournament, though. It wasn't the highlight of the tournament. I was the first American to be awarded the Friendship Award. I was the #1 first American ever to get that award, and that award was by vote of all of the people that bowled in that tournament, and the tournament was known as the Friendship Tournament of the Americans. So that was actually the main award that you could get at that tournament, and I was flabbergasted and so honored to get that award. Humbly honored, believe me.
Well, it's funny. I've got a couple of comments on that. First of all, we didn't cover this before we went on air, but I am in Louisville, Kentucky. I've known Ron Woolett my entire life.
He's a good guy.
I didn't realize you two guys had bowled against each other, and even in, I guess Ron's probably in his 70s or 80s. Even at that age, he's still outstriking some of the young guns in our Thursday night men's league last year. And it was funny because a buddy of mine who just moved here a couple of years ago was like, "Who's that old lefty?" I said, "That old lefty." So that old lefty can beat just about any kid in this city.
I'm going to tell you, Ron was a good bowler, and he's also a good guy. I like Ron a lot. We got along great, and like I say, we were teammates on that team that year, and we've communicated numerous times over the years. Probably not as much as I would have liked to, and but he's one of my favorites. Very, very good man. And like you say, he could sure bowl.
I mean, he's a stroker, just right up the lane, just like you would expect a lefty.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Ron's you're lucky to know him. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a very good guy. But the time that I got to spend at the Tournament of Americas, it was the second tournament I got to compete in as a part of Junior Team USA, and the first one was down in Puebla, Mexico, and it was a lot more. I won't say a lot more serious, because anytime you have USA on your back, it is a serious competition. But we were a lot more relaxed because we bowled in Fort Lauderdale for the Tournament of Americas. And it was just a great experience. It was a lot friendlier, like you said, the friendship tournament. That was kind of the vibe you got. And I take more memories away from the Tournament of Americas, to be honest with you, on the lanes and with the other competitors than I do from my experience at the American Zone Championships in Mexico. But that's a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun at that event.
I was definitely ditto your remarks there, because some of the people that I bowled against from the other nations, I don't know how many now, but there were 22 nations represented the year that I bowled in '74, and I still have run into many of those people over the years in different locations. Doing some exhibition work for Storm and also for Ipsia, and those relationships still exist. So you're right. It's a real venue to, if any of the young people ever have an opportunity to bowl, please take advantage of it. You're going to remember it the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Good thoughts there.
Now, Bob, your friendship award doesn't surprise me one bit, having known you now for 15 years or so, and even today, just the presence that you have when you're at the Open Championships or anywhere really out there as an ambassador. But that's a role you have taken on in multiple regards at the OC, and one of those things is at the Special Olympics, the National Unified Tournament. Every year, that's part of our opening week activities at the OC. Special Olympics folks come in, they take over the lanes and have their own national tournament. And you and your fellow Hall of Famer, Jimmy Schroeder, are a huge part of that. Jimmy helped get that tournament going back in 1991 in Toledo, and you came on board shortly after to help just promote the event, to be a part of the event, and to be a presence at the tournament each year, a familiar face for the bowlers. Talk about that experience, that event, and what it means to be a part of that, and then we'll ask some more questions about the opening week as well. But talk about the Special Olympics.
Well, it's one of my special places to be. You said it pretty well. I've been working with Jimmy for many, many years, and of course, with his recent accident that he had, and he's not been able to make the tournament the last couple of years, and I've been sort of elevated into his position there. But Jimmy was responsible for getting that unified national tournament going in '91, and every year the couple of years that he hasn't been able to make it, all I do is field questions about how's Jimmy doing from all of the bowlers and also their sponsors and parents, and it's just a great event. I enjoy it immensely. I could tell you a lot of little stories about that, but the tournament just means so much to the people that play in that tournament. The unified tournament, they also are allowed to have one pacer that bowls with the Special Olympics, the Special Olympic people. So it's really a family deal, and one I look forward to every year. Unfortunately, this year they had to cancel due to the virus situation, the coronavirus, and but they're already planning for next year, and everything's been held, and they're ready to go for it next year. Hopefully, I'll be able to be there too.
Well, when I walk into the venue and I see you and Jimmy sitting at the table signing autographs, and you guys signed souvenir bowling pins for all the participants as well. So hundreds of bowling pins. That's when I know that it's really opening week, and it's about to go down in the host city. One of my favorite memories, I think, of that event is back in 2007. And you mentioned how special it is and how memorable it is for the participants. But during one of the award ceremonies, which you guys do as well, you hand out the medals. One of the bowlers from 50 lanes away at least was called for winning an event and ran the entire length of the approach. It did a running leap into your arms in appreciation. It was awesome to see, and certainly a surprise, but that goes to describe just exactly what that event means.
Absolutely. I remember that so well, and other things just like that. I mean, you make friends there, and they remember from one year to the next. You do be surprised. The last 5 or 6 years, I've been doing a little clinic, and our Jimmy and I both together, and then the last 2, and I've had a couple of my bowling friends have helped me a couple of years. We've run clinics prior to the tournament starting, and amazing. Once the tournament starts, some of these people that we work with in these clinics, they'll come up to while they're bowling in the tournament and say, "I remember you told me to do that. Did you see? I did that." And I mean, they really pay attention, and they try. Their motto is effort. It's not once you win, it's effort. So it's definitely one of my favorite events.
Now, the timing of that event has allowed you to be a part of something that Daniel has not yet experienced at the Open Championships. Being that that's opening week, that allowed you and Jimmy sometimes to stay around for opening ceremonies and be a part of the ceremony, being part of walking out Joe Bowler to the tournament lanes to throw out the first shot of the year. Definitely, again, a very big tradition at the Open Championships, Joe Bowler and the opening ceremony, because, of course, that's the start of what could be 150 days of intense, prestigious competition. How special is it to be part of that and to help kick off the event?
You know what? That's really special to me. I get a kick out of the Joe Bowler deal. It's a tradition, and it never ceases to be a big part of the opening of the tournament. Also, it's a spectacle. They do such a good job. They have entertainment. They have a guard who does the opening, and it's been my privilege. I think it's been probably 10 years that I've stuck around for that opening ceremonies too, because the tournament, the Space Olympics tournament, as you said, runs just before the opening of the main Open Championship. So very convenient too to be there.
Now, Daniel, you've read the stories, you've seen the videos, and now you've heard right from Bob. What are you most looking forward to about opening ceremonies and just about being there for the entirety? Because you joined us about a month in to last year's event, and there's a few of those key things that you have not yet gotten to experience.
Well, I was able to be there for the last ball thrown last year. I do still have that video that I'll keep forever, just because it's a moment that I won't forget and I want to hang on to. But what I am really disappointed that I'm missing this year is the Special Olympics. It's been a long time since I've done any work with Special Olympic bowlers, but I have in the past, and it's a lot of fun. You get a lot of joy from that. And we did have a competitor from Louisville who was going to go with his mom to represent the state and bowl in the event, who couldn't, and he understood why it had to be canceled. Very disappointed, but looking forward to getting back out there at some point again. I'm sure Dallas is. But yeah, I want to be there for the whole thing. Like you said, I was invited out about a month after the start of last year in Las Vegas. Jumped right into it, right into the 10:45 singles and doubles squads and the 7 a.m. Events. And the days were long by the time I got there. So I would like to ease into the tournament rather than just be tossed into the fire and expected to breathe.
Well, if
Yeah,
I might
Bob.
offer something, if
Yes,
I may
sir.
offer something, it would be to your advantage, and you get a big kick out of it. You go in a week or a few days early and participate in part of the Special Olympics
Mm-hmm.
at the same time. There are two events coinciding practically, and they're wonderful.
Oh yeah, the plan would be to get in. The plan this year was to get in, 3-4 days before the event started. So I would have been there this year.
Good.
And I'm sure that'll be the plan next year.
Well, you'll love it.
Now, Bob, in 64 years of competition, you've had a chance to experience the evolution of the event, the scoring systems, the lanes, the lane patterns, everything, even travel. So there's got to be some great stories from over the years. Anything in particular stand out for you? You mentioned the late night team meetings, and all of these things are part of the tournament experience. But anything special or any real standout, funny stories even from over your 64 years?
Well, offhand, I can't pick up anything offhand, but I'm sure there are plenty. If you allow me, I'll take about 2 minutes for each year and give you a 2-minute story for each year I've been there.
I know you could as well. I've heard some great ones, and I have no doubt you have an excellent memory as well.
Well, I will tell you one cute story. It's kind of funny. I was bowling with a team out of Columbus, Ohio. My friend Bill McCorkle, who I know you know, and who passed away 2 years ago. Bill's was one of my favorite friends, and we bowled in probably 30 tournaments together. And we had a team in Columbus, Ohio, and of course the squads ran late all the time back in those years. And we had a fellow that was on our team, and he was late every night for league. He'd come in at the second or third frame and have to make up. And he was just always tardy. Well, we're both the ABC one year, and I think it was in Toledo. And the squads are running late. We're sitting in the stands waiting for the squad for us. Come on, they're a squad late. Our time was now, but there's a squad before us that is just getting on the lanes. They come down the center aisle. We're sitting back in the stands. They no sooner clear the last man. Here comes our teammate running like the devil. He's got a bag in each hand. He's going to catch up with our squad. We're sitting in the stands watching him. He's a squad early for the first time in his life. That was pretty funny. We gave him a standing ovation. That was one I'll never forget.
There's no doubt that the people and the teammates are what make this experience so special. But also in your time, you've seen some amazing cities. You've had the chance to travel coast to coast. Any particular cities that stand out, maybe because you did well there or just because they were great, welcoming places?
Well, we bowled in Long Beach. That was one of my favorite cities, and I loved it out in Long Beach. I ran into some people out there that I had been stationed with at 29 Palms, California in the Marine Corps, and a couple of people that were in the bowling business that I from the West Coast that you don't get to see often. So there were a lot of people that I knew out there that made that a very enjoyable trip. Of course, Long Beach, the weather was great, and that was one. But Buffalo, New York has always been a favorite city of mine. The people in Buffalo are blue-collar people. They had so many nice little places for lunch, and the people were so nice, so friendly. I've always liked Buffalo, and we bowled there several times. And of course, Indianapolis. How could I forget Indianapolis? That was the site of our best tournament ever, and you can't Can't forget that. So there's three. There's been several. I mean, there's been a lot of cities. You got to remember, for years, we traveled to a different city every year. In the past 10 or 15 years, we've had the bowling stadium, and we now have South Point, where we alternate every 2 or 3 years going back to the same locations. But, you know, for 50 years, we went to a different city every year. And that was always nice. I thought that was an addition to the tournament, although some of the events locations didn't offer the variety of, you know, things to do other than the bowling. And with the stadium and the South Point now in Las Vegas, a stadium in Reno, those are great venues, and people do have other things to do. So,
Well, now Reno has a little bit of a special place for you, being the place where you reached 100,000 pins.
oh boy.
And an amazing day. The stands were filled with your friends. You didn't know they were going to be there. It was a surprise for Bill Chrisman to bring out 100 people to come and share that moment with you. You turned around and you saw them, and then utter surprise on your face. And then the celebration went into the night. One of the best bowling parties that I've ever been to. Aaron Smith still talks about it to this day. Just the outpouring for such a big accomplishment on the tournament lanes. Describe that day and describe that night, which was hosted by Randy Peterson, a hilarious guy. He told some terrific stories about you and your time together. Some we can't talk about here on the family show, but just talk about that day and turning around and seeing everybody up there in the bleachers.
Yeah, that was really an amazing time. I will never forget that. It'll remain one of the greatest things that ever happened to me in bowling. And as you have stated, I came down the center aisle, and of course they brought me down by myself, and the lights were in my eyes. I didn't even look up into the stadium, up into the seat bleacher. As I came down and came on the lanes, and I started to turn around to face the pins, and my friend Bill McCorkle said, "Hey, look up there." I turned around, like you said, there's all my friends, my peers, the people I work with, my friends from all over the United States, and they all had a shirt on, said, had my name on it, and we got Hart or something to that effect. And I thought, my goodness, I couldn't believe it. And I did not see him at all. In the course of before we bowled, a day or two before that, I kept seeing people that, you know, I'd ask them, I'd say, "Well, when are you bowling?" "Oh, we bowled yesterday." Or, "We're going to be bowling the same squad that you're on," or this and that. They all had a good excuse. And I didn't put it together. I had no idea. And I didn't, over the years, I didn't realize how big a night that would be to reach 100,000 pins. And it was hard to separate those years from the night that it happened. It was so amazing. And then Bill Chrisman and Barb, of course, Storm owners, threw a dinner party for about 100 people, like you say, and I know you were there, and it was just wonderful. Randy Peterson was going to roast me, and I caught him early and roasted him first. That quieted things down slightly. No, that was a great dinner afterwards, and the people had a wonderful time. I still have people with, you know, it comes up on Facebook. "You remember, boy, we remember the night you hit 100,000," and it's just hard to describe how great a feeling that was, and not to realize until the time it happened that it really is a great accomplishment.
Well, and now that's something that's only been done 23 times in the history of the event, which began in 1901. Where does that rank? Now that you've described it so well, where does that rank among all the things you've accomplished in your Hall of Fame career?
Well, like you say, it's 1 of 23, so over all those years, we've all been very fortunate to be able to be around that long and to compete that long to hit the 100,000 pins. And I'm sure everybody that's in that club enjoys it and feels it's a wonderful thing, just like I do. And for the ones that are coming up, we got a few coming up. Jamie Brooks, who's so well known in the bowling industry and a very, very good friend of mine, is going to reach 100,000. He was going to reach it this year. Hopefully, he'll be able to schedule in later in the year and hit his 100,000 pins this year too. So, everybody that's approaching that moment, that's all you think about. Believe me, the last year before I hit that 100,000, I thought about it more than once. I guarantee you.
Well, now you've got number 65 on the horizon, another huge milestone, delayed now by what's happening in the world, but we'll have you on the phone soon to get your dates situated for 2020. How anxious are you for number 65 for that march down center aisle, the special award, the recognition, and again, being part of a very small club at the Open Championships? And how much more difficult now is the weight and the anxiety and the anxiousness with this pushback now as you wait for that date to come up?
Well, it's what it is. I certainly feel bad for all the bowlers that have been delayed this year that are looking forward to the tournament. I'm one of them. I would have been bowling last week on my regular time. I would have had the 65 in, looking forward to 66, and I guess I would have started the 66 waiting the same way I did for 65. But I am looking forward to 65, and I have all intentions to be there. I'm very proud, like I say, very humbled to have reached that 65, and very fortunate. You know how fortunate you have to be to bowl in 65 open tournaments. All of
You mentioned
those.
earlier there's
Go
been
ahead.
some health issues, some things that slowed you down a little bit in recent years, but didn't stop you. Again, maybe that's a motivator, is knowing that you have these accomplishments and these things on the horizon that do push you and keep you going and keep you strong.
Well, the bowling industry is one that's kept me young and kept me strong, so to speak. I'm not as strong and I'm not as young, but it has kept me charged. Bowling has been my life, and I still like to bowl. And I'm 82 years old, so I can't bowl like I used to. I can't do a lot of things that I used to do. But like you say, I had a few little situations along the way. But 6 years ago, I had a massive heart attack and was in a coma for about 12 days, and wasn't too sure I'd ever be out to bowl again. But I did come back and was bowling since that. I still bowl. I still look forward to bowling. I got a new bowling ball I just drilled up before this virus hit. I haven't even had a chance to throw it yet. Looking forward to it, and it is a Storm bowling ball.
So I bet you know the right people.
Well, being with Storm has kept me interested in this game that I love too. I mean, I've been dealing with bowlers and bowling industry, regardless of whether they are major bowlers or not. They are the people that I've grown up with and I've learned to love and care for. Bowlers are very, very special people, and bowling game is very healthy right now, and it's never been in a better shape, in my opinion. It's changed. Everything changes. Just like our lifestyle is going to change, we're going to have to adapt to what's coming. And we've had to do that over the years with bowling, but it's been a wonderful trip and one that I'm very thankful for.
And now you mentioned that you're still very active with Storm and out there in the bowling world and getting to events when it's possible. What are those events? What do you do? What's just a regular week or two for you as far as your role with Storm? And what do you most miss about being able to leave the house and work and help the game and be an ambassador?
Well, 25 years ago when I hired with Storm, and Bill Chrisman and I met at the Showboat Lanes. I was bowling in a PBA tournament there, and a mutual friend of ours arranged a meeting between Bill and I. Bill was in his infant years with the Storm Company. He had needed a salesman. He had one salesperson on the West Coast that handled a couple states, and everything other than that was basically handled through the office. And he needed a salesman, and I really wasn't looking for a job. I had businesses of my own in Columbus. I was in the pro shop business and a piece of the center. And my wife and I were contemplating making a move, basically for her career. And it just happened that I went to work with Bill. I went to work for him, handling basically everything east of the Mississippi as a salesperson. I handled the distributors and the pro shops, and little by little we hired other people to take parts of the territory. And I've moved into a position in my later years now where I go to a lot of the major events, but it's been something that's kept me interested in alive in the business. The business itself has kept me happy in what I do in the bowling business, and I more or less now I'm as Bill has said, I'm on somewhat of a retirement basis now because I only fly. I don't have to drive. I wore out three Lincoln Town cars when I first went to work for him over the years, but I do all my traveling now is by air, and not as many calls as I used to have to make. So I'm in a really good position with the Storm and with Bill and Barb, who are more than employees, best friends. Everybody that works for them loves Bill and Barb. They treat them like part of the family, and that's a major part of the success that Storm has had over the years. They're great people, and certainly personal friends of myself. Been a good trip for me.
All right, well, Bob, as we get ready for the 2020 event, it's been announced now that it will be September 12th. Will be our start date, opening day, Daniel's first opening day. I'm still about 40 years away from 65, and Daniel just getting started in his Open Championships career. But do you have any advice for us as we get out there, not only competitively, but just longevity-wise? How do we keep it going? For as we determined yesterday, I'm a good-looking 53 years old now. But how do we keep it going to be in as good a shape and as active and just as lively as you are out there on the lanes? And what are the secrets?
Well, I don't know what the secret is. I guess it's you need to like what you're doing. That's one thing for sure. I think that are you talking about personally, or are you talking about the event itself?
Just in general. I mean, you're 82 years old, as you said, and you're going to run down center aisle, no doubt, and get to the bowling and go out there and beat many of the guys around you and do it with a smile. But that's,
I'll run very slowly. No, I look forward to it, and I think it's something. It's in your blood. The people are what keeps you going, regardless. It's stated many times in many areas of many activities, but people in the activities that you're interested in are what brings you back and keeps you going. The many people and the relationships and the friendships, it's what keeps you going. If it weren't for the other people that are interested in the same thing you are, it wouldn't be very easy and it wouldn't be any fun.
Well,
Now,
I'm going to ask you for one more quick piece of advice. We've gotten advice from you about how to maintain the longevity of our OC careers. But what about the first timers, whether it's an 18-year-old fresh out of high school or it's a 42-year-old who got told by his first-time league members how awesome this tournament is? What advice would you have for a first-timer at this tournament?
Well, I would say it's been an event. I remember my first one. We talked about it in Seattle. It was amazing to me that the game was on the level that it was being handled in such a dramatic manner. And I think that they owe it to themselves. If they're involved in bowling, they owe it to themselves to participate in a national championship like the Open, and to realize actually what the USBC does, because the tournament is run so efficiently now, and the people out there are so good at what they do. I could name names of people that work for the USBC that I've known over the years that still work for them, and I would, but I'm sure I'd miss somebody along the way, and I'd feel terrible about that. But you need, if you've not been to an Open Championship, you need to go to one. If I can talk you into one, you won't need to be talked into number 2 or number 65. Nobody's urging me to go to 65. I'm going because I want to be there. And I think that's on any person that's never bowled in the Open Championship is going to feel when they go to their first one.
Well, Daniel, I'm glad you jumped back in there. I'm glad that was a great question. And as much as I try to tell you about the OC and the history and the prestige, and you're hearing it straight from the Hall of Famer, 3-time Eagle winner. So I'm sure that will resonate even more. I know that even this far in, I still get a little bit starstruck when gentlemen like Bob Hart come in to say hello. They go out of their way. Their names come up on the caller ID, whatever it is. Certainly a very special moment still. And I hope there's many more for you down the line. And now, while we have the undivided attention of one of the greatest of our event and our sport, a terrific ambassador, any final questions for Bob just about the bowling world in general, anything that will help you reach the longevity that he has in our sport?
I guess the last question I might have, and this is a very this might serve me more than our viewers or even you, Matt, kind of a personal question, but I've grown up around the sport. I've grown up, bowling. My father has run a pro shop my entire life, so bowling has literally put food on the table. And people have always asked me, how have you not lost your passion for this sport? Why do you love it so much? I tell the story that at my first Open Championships, it was in Reno back in 2010. And I've told this story on this podcast a couple of times, so if you're watching, I apologize. But, Bob, you haven't heard this yet.
Okay.
We get into Reno, and the normal schedule of the people I was traveling with when they would get to the OC is drop their stuff off in the hotel room and then go grab dinner somewhere. And we were staying, I think it was at Silver Legacy, and they all wanted to go grab dinner. I'd never been to the stadium before. So I said, you all go ahead. I'm just going to go to the stadium and just check it out. And I ended up sitting there probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, just watching bowling. And I've had people ask me about the job. And how can you just watch bowling? That's all you do at the OC is watch bowling and track scores. And I don't really have a good answer for them. I just tell them I love this sport. I've got a passion for it that I can't explain. Can you explain the passion that people like the three of us have for this sport? Or is it just something that's natural, that's born or bred into us and it is what it is? I can't explain it.
Well, I think if you explain it with your attitude, you're still enthralled with it. You love the game and you love the people that's associated with it. It's pretty apparent with your attitude. So,
yeah, I can't explain it. It is what it is. We all love the sport. I've loved every minute that we've been doing this podcast, talking to everybody from a young Andrew Anderson to a Hall of Famer like yourself.
An old Hall of Famer. You should have said that.
An experienced Hall of Famer.
I saw you change that word. Oh, God.
But,
people ask me once in a while if I'm Bob Hart. They'll come up and say, are you Bob Hart? Well, now I have the same answer. Yeah, I'm what's left of him.
Well, Matt mentioned that, he looks forward to me having the opportunity to gain all the type of stories that he has and that you guys have. And I certainly look forward to that as well.
Okay, buddy. I'm sure glad to have been here today and glad to see you.
I
gonna have
look
to.
forward to meeting you. Yeah,
By golly, I do too. I hope
Absolutely.
it's soon.
yes, sir.
Okay, Daniel.
Now, Bob, we've covered a lot of topics, a lot of years, a lot of great stories. Any final thoughts for the viewers, the bowling fans, the Bob Hart fans, all of those looking for the 65 years? And again, you gave a shout out to the first timers. And but any final thoughts before we wrap things up today?
I'll tell you another cute story.
Absolutely.
That involves my wife. I got to get my wife Beverly in here, who's been. We just celebrated 36 years. So on the PBA senior tour, a friend of ours' wife always goes with the bowler. And she keeps score of all of his scores. Every game he's ever bowled on the PBA senior tour, she has marked down the score as a spectator. And as it would happen, we happened to be crossing on the same pair this one tournament. So my wife was sitting with her friend and my friend's wife. And she asked my wife if she would like to keep my scores. And Bev said, no, I don't keep Bob's scores. But he said, well, I got sheets all made out. Just keep the score. So she did. Kept all my scores. Well, by the time we got through bowling, you know how bowlers are. We went to dinner, the four of us. And the bowler always seems to doesn't remember there's bad shots. He remembers the good shots and it maybe didn't carry a 10 pin or this and that. And Bob Hart sitting at that table telling my wife and our friends who happen to be Henry and Sharon Blau how many bad hits I got that I didn't get to carry the 10 pin and I didn't do this and I didn't do this. And my wife pulls out these score sheets. And she said, yeah, you bowled a lot better than your score. You left a washout this frame. You left a 4-pin cluster this frame. You missed a 10-pin over. I said, don't you ever keep my scores again. And that was the end of that.
Spoken like a true bowler.
I got it off her chore list. Oh, boy.
One and done. Another terrific recollection, the stories. We could talk all day. I know when you come by to visit at the Open Championships, there's always something. And again, some not appropriate for the family podcast, which is even better. Those are the best ones. So if you see Bob Hart, try to get some of those stories out of him in person. You won't be disappointed. But folks, we appreciate everybody tuning in today. Bob, thank you again for the time, for all you do for the sport and have done over the last almost 70 years now. And Daniel, thanks for all your great insight today as well. And folks, that is going to do it for the latest edition of Inside the OC. Again, my name is Matt Cannizzaro. That's the news for now. We'll see you on the links.